When I was about 4 years old, my grandfather, my Papaw, would put me on a horse that had absolutely no business holding a small child. He'd hand me the reins and say, "Hold on tight, darling." That was his advice to me, hold on tight. He didn't tell me what to do if the horse spooked. He didn't give me a ton of instructions with the reins or how to sit deep in the saddle. He didn't talk me through the worst case scenarios or even run a safety drill, I can assure you. He just put me on the horse, handed me the reins, and trusted that the horse and I would figure it out. And here's the thing, I didn't realize until I was a grown woman running my fourth or fifth business that this was the entire philosophy of his life. That was how he flew an airplane that he taught himself to fly. That was how he went to Alaska to dig for gold. That was how he built a world class cutting horse facility in a town of 387 people in the middle of nowhere, Mississippi. Papaw didn't wait until he was ready. He got on the horse, he held on tight, and he figured out how to aim on the way down. You're listening to Ready, Fire, Aim, the podcast about wrangling the chaos of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Lacey Arant. Let's dive in. Okay, welcome in. So, we just wrapped a 5 episode launch series together. 5 episodes, we put the whole brand identity matrix out on the table for you. And before we go any further, I have to tell you the real story of where this show and honestly the way I think about everything actually came from. Because Ready, Fire, Aim is not a framework I invented. It's not something I read in a business book. It was really the way that I was raised. And specifically, this is something I learned from my papa, Garry Hughes. And, the more that I've built businesses over the last, decade and a half, the more I've realized that so much of what I know about how to actually do all of this really came from him. You can call it genetics or the countless hours I spent riding in his truck, pretending his office chair was mine, or even coming through all of his millions of yellow legal pads that I loved so much and still do. Who he was is so deeply woven into who I am today. So I want you to meet him. And I want to tell you why this show is named Ready, Fire, Aim. So, my papa was the kind of man who would decide on a Tuesday that he was going to learn how to fly an airplane. And by the following Tuesday, he owned an airplane and was flying one. I'm not exaggerating to you. He taught himself how to do that. Now, please do not take this as a recommendation of any sort. Aviation being a hobby is not one that I'm going to endorse here, but that just was who he was. One time he was up in the air flying and something went wrong with the controls. I'm unclear on the details. But the instrument stopped working. And, most people in that situation, I would imagine, would panic. But he just looked down, found a road that he recognized, and he followed it home. Like the instruments literally failed him. He didn't have the technology, he didn't have all the right preparation, but he had paid enough attention to his surroundings that he could look down, recognize the road he needed, and found one that would take him home. He also went to Alaska to dig for gold. It's one of my favorite stories. And it is my understanding that he didn't find any. And so he had to figure out a way to make enough money to get himself back home. Now, I don't know how he actually did that. And I'm not sure he really ever fully told me, but he did get home. And then there was the cutting horse facility. Okay, so if you've ever watched Yellowstone, and specifically the episodes where Taylor Sheridan, the writer, would come into an episode or be out in an arena, like at a horse show, specifically the episodes about like the Four Sixes Ranch. And so Taylor Sheridan would be on a horse out in an arena with a small herd of cattle. And so cutting is where you separate a calf from the herd. And so your horse is supposed to do all these fancy maneuvers to stay between the calf and the herd. The whole point is to keep it, to not let it run back to the herd. You want to keep them separated for a certain amount of time. And so if you are familiar with this sport, you know that it is in an industry built for Texas, like Fort Worth, Texas, places with money and tradition and the facilities to go with it. Now, Fort Worth, Texas is a long way from Noxapater, Mississippi, population 387, with one stop sign. But that didn't stop Papaw from building a world class cutting horse operation, complete with a state of the art arena with an observing deck, a 26 stall barn, and he hired a trainer to live full time on the property. He was truly, in the most loving way I can possibly say this, delusionally confident that he could pull these things off. And this is scratching the surface here. I we would this episode would have to be 11 hours long to get just half of the stories in. And we don't have time for that. But he truly just believed that he could do these things, and he usually did. And so he used to tell me over and over again, "Now, darling, if you could be a doctor or a lawyer, and if you could just speak a second language, you'll be all right." Those were his 3 markers of success for me when he looked at my future. You know, as it turned out, I've had like 47 different jobs and businesses up until this point, and none of them being doctor or lawyer. But I have learned how to speak Spanish. I can do that fairly well. So I don't know how he would feel about me only checking one of those things off the list, but here we are. But when I think about what he was actually doing when he would say those things to me, I didn't understand this until I'm now much older. But by telling a 4-year-old little girl that she should be a doctor or a lawyer or be bilingual one day, he wasn't really telling me to become any of those things specifically. He was telling me, though, over and over from the time I could understand words, that I could do anything, that nothing was off the table, that the size of my dreams really didn't matter. What mattered was my willingness and commitment to chasing them. I mean, he lit a fire in me when I was so little that has really never gone out. And I'm truly not sure that I'd be sitting here telling you these stories if he hadn't had done that. Another one of his lines was, "Now, darling, you got to be tough to be in business." And I think about that line all of the time because building a business is not for the weak. And you will hear me say this over and over and over again. You have to have the stomach for this kind of work. It's not for the easily discouraged. It's not for the people who need every detail of the plan figured out before they take their very first step. And he knew that. He lived that. He failed at it. He succeeded at it. He went broke, got back up again, started over and over again. So many times across so many industries, if you even knew. And he did all of it with nothing but his own willingness to figure it out along the way. My papaw passed in July of 2021, and I have to be honest with you, I think about him all the time. I think about him when I'm starting something new. I think about him when have been sitting on a decision too long. I think about, when I'm just holding all of these tasks that I really shouldn't be, which if you listen to episode 4, you already know I do that way too often. He was a master delegator. If you were in his orbit, you were in motion. I can promise you that. If you know, you know. And I think about him when I have an opportunity or a problem in front of me that just feels too big to tackle. And then I hear his voice in the back of my head saying, "Hold on tight, darling." This has been such a fun story to think back on and to share with you. But it really is more than that. It took me so many years to figure this out, but there truly was a method to his madness. And I want to teach you the framework, or teach it to you as a framework, because my hope is that it is far more than just the title of this podcast. I really hope that this is a simple phrase that you can tuck away in the back of your own head, and one that if you never listen to another episode of this show, you can use it as a tool to chase even the dreams that are ahead of you that just might feel way too big. And so I know you've heard the phrase ready, aim, fire. Well, we're going to mix that up a little bit. It's ready, fire, aim. 3 phases. And this is how I have learned to think about every business move, every brand decision, every launch we put into the world, every pivot we have to make. So the ready is preparation, not perfection, not knowing every detail ahead of time. And now I do want to say being consistently prepared is an incredible habit. And this is something my dad actually talks about a lot, and he's truly an expert on this. And so we're going to be talking a lot more about that soon. But what I'm talking about today is how a lot of founders and business owners get stuck in this preparation phase. And we can't let that happen. It really is so simple. Pay attention to what you're learning, learn or know enough to start something. And that's what he did. He paid attention to the roads below him when he was flying in an airplane. And not because he thought that he would lose his instruments, but because that's just how he lived. He gathered information constantly. He was always noticing and learning so that when he needed it, he had it. And that's what ready really is. It's not a checklist, it's a sense of awareness. It's a commitment to doing the foundational work, knowing that problem that you solve, understanding your brand or business's positioning, and having a solid solution statement so that when you go with something to stand on. And so, fire is taking action, fire away, right? Take action before you feel ready. Hold on tight and get after it. Most founders get so paralyzed at this step. And it's not because they don't have the strategy or a plan. They often have more strategy than they need, honestly. But they get so paralyzed by the perfection of all of it that they cannot bring themselves to just actually move, to just get started. They feel like they've got to learn one more framework or take one more course or have one more affirmation that they really are ready. Do you ever feel this? Has this been you? I can tell you this has been me. But Papaw didn't need anyone's affirmation. He would get on the horse, he'd get in the airplane, he would hop on a plane to Alaska. The action itself is what produces the information that you need to be able to refine your approach. I don't want you to miss this. If you've drifted, come back to me. This is so important. If you take nothing else from today, this is the line. The action itself is what produces the information that you need to refine your approach. Aim, when we get to the aim part, we're just adjusting. This is just an adjustment. This is the part that most founders skip altogether. They fire and then they fire again and then they fire again, and they never stop or slow down enough to learn from the results they've gotten, the good or the bad. And so aiming is the work of adjusting course as you go. You're going to assess the action you took, get really honest about what you need to refine and adjust based on real information instead of fear or theory. And this is what I've learned. You can't adjust a course you aren't on yet. So you have to fire away. You have to take action. And doing that gives you the ability to aim as you go. So that's the framework of ready, fire, aim. Pay attention, know enough to get started, hold on tight, and fire away, and then assess and adjust as you go. And when you do this, you'll watch every aspect of what you do get better and better over time. This I can promise you. You'll notice the approach you take to your work, your understanding of your clients and their needs, and both the way and the what that you deliver to them, right? What you deliver to them and how you do it. All of that will get better every single time you do it with rep after rep after rep and adjusting course on the back end. And so I want to name one more thing before I wrap up because it could give you some helpful context. I am the fourth generation of entrepreneurs on both sides of my family. And it's not lost on me that I actually majored in sports broadcasting. So glad we're finally putting some of that degree to use. Look at me, mom and dad. But I really could never envision truly doing that job. I mean, this entrepreneurial spirit runs so deep in my body and my heart and my brain that I really didn't know there were other options for me other than starting a business. But my point is this: I didn't invent any of this. This is not unique to me. I'm not just standing here telling you that anything that wasn't already modeled for me by my family who built things with their hands and their hearts and their willingness to be wrong on the way to being right and figuring it out. And so, ready, fire, aim is not my idea. It is truly what I have inherited. And it is a gift, I feel like, that I've been given that is a treasure to me. And so I think that's part of why I'm so passionate about sharing this part with you, because not everybody got a papaw who put him on a horse as a little bitty girl and said, "Hold on tight, darling." No, I do have to tell you, he was right there if something were to go wrong and would never have put me in danger. But he knew that we could figure it out, and he had that belief in me, right? And also on the other side of my family, not everybody got a granddaddy like I have to this day, who ran a generations old family brick business and showed them what showing up and leading well every single day actually looks like. You'll be hearing so much more about him in episodes to come, but You might be the very first entrepreneur in your family. This might be the first crack anyone's taken at this, high risk, but high reward type of life. And if that is you, I just want you to hear me say this. You can borrow my papaw. You can borrow his voice in the back of your head. Hold on tight, darling. You got to be tough to be in business. And he was so right. If this is a horse that you do end up getting on, trust me, you will fall off. Or it will take off running so fast, it's going to give you whiplash. Or maybe it'll be stubborn as hell one day and not even your sharpest pair of spurs is going to be able to make it go. I have been on every one of those paths before. But when you do fall, you got to get back on. And if it does take off running, you're going to have to hold on tight. And if you get stuck, you got to stick with it and you can't give up. And so I hope that this is the simplest but most powerful reminder to you. Even just seeing the name of the podcast, I hope is something that you can use day in and day out. But I'm also so thankful for you letting me share the backstory with you today, and that this is going to be a place that you continue to return to as you grow on your journey in entrepreneurship and in growing your business and in even better defining your brand. So, if you're waiting for permission, if you're waiting for perfect, if you're waiting to feel ready, do not forget ready, fire, aim. And I'll see you next time. Ready, Fire, Aim is brought to you by Endeavor, where we equip overwhelmed founders to build brands that actually generate the impact and revenue they're capable of. If your strategy needs to catch up with your vision, head to endeavorbranding.com to book a call with our team or take our quiz to figure out your biggest gap.